just to show you that this is not just theory, this is not just an exercise, stick around to the very end of this video, and I'm going to share with you a composition, a really cool composition that I wrote with this material. Today, we're going to talk about a really interesting topic called Jazz Minor. You might be wondering, what the heck is Jazz Minor? I've never heard of this. Well, it's a variation on the minor scale where you play only one note differently than a major scale, and that's going to be the third. So today we're going to demonstrate how it applies to the guitar. What is jazz minor? How is it different from a major scale? We talk about some of the interesting harmonies that come out of this scale. We talk about some cool exercises that you can do with this scale to explore the neck of the guitar and to experience some of those tonalities for yourself. And finally, I shared with you a piece that I wrote using the scale, using these exercises that are in this video. So I hope you enjoy it. The first thing we're going to talk about with jazz minor is how is this different from a major scale. So if you look at the graphics that are included, you can see the C major scale, and it is going to sound like this. Now we're going to examine what the C jazz minor scale looks like. And if you look at the two graphics that are shown here, you'll see that we're only changing just one note. And that note that we're changing is that E natural in the major scale to an E flat in the jazz minor scale. And it's going to sound like this. So for me, that one note is very subtle when you listen to it as a scale. To me, when you play the scale going up, that lowered third is very pronounced and it sounds very minor. But something interesting happens for me when you go down the scale is that it sounds, for most of the scale, deceptively major. And then all of a sudden you get that one color note, that lowered third, and then this is a minor scale. And so it's really interesting in that respect. But what I find even more interesting about this jazz minor scale is that there are some incredible chords that come out of this. And that one note makes all the difference in the world. Sharp 11 and flat 13. Those are some really cool color extensions to those chords, and I'm going to do a whole video about that just in the future. In this one, we're just going to stick to the basic triads, but I wanted to introduce you to some of those ideas because there's some incredible sounds that come out of this scale. If you look at the graphics below, the first one shows the chords, the triad chords, the basic 3-note chords that are generated by the major scale. And so you're going to get C major, and then you're going to get D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B half diminished, and then C major again. And so the pattern of chords is going to be major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, half diminished, and then you're at C major again. But look what happens when we change just that one note. It's really interesting. We're going to get a completely different series of chords and tonalities, I guess, qualities of chords, just by changing just that one note. And so what we're going to get with the C jazz minor scale is we're going to get C minor, D minor, E flat augmented, that's probably my favorite chord, F7 sharp 11, then we're going to get G7 flat 13, and then we're going to get A half diminished, B half diminished, and then C minor again. If you look at if you compare the series of chords to the major scale, it's totally different, and we only changed one note. Here, if you look at the graphic, this time we're going to have minor, minor, augmented, major, major, half diminished, and then minor again. And you can see that that one note makes all the difference in the world. So that's just kind of an introduction into what jazz minor is. That's a theoretical introduction. So now that we have some idea about what jazz minor is, let's go ahead and play some stuff using jazz minor. What I'm going to demonstrate for you here is a set of scales, or not scales exactly. It's a finger patterning. We're going to wrap around each note in the chord with the 3-1-5 pattern, just like we did if you saw my practicing fun scales a few weeks ago. We're going to use that same wrap around the note finger pattern. And if you missed that video, check out the video description below, and you can find the full details on that video. But it's a really cool way to play your scale. It's a really cool way to hear what the sounds of the scale are, and it's a lot more fun than just going up and down the scale. A lot more useful too. So I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate this, and we're going to play on 2 sets of strings. So first we're going to play on the 5th and 6th string. And now we're going to play that same exercise, that 3-1-5 pattern, with the C jazz minor scale on the 5th and 4th strings. Next, we're going to play the C jazz minor scale on the 4th and 3rd strings. Next, we're going to play the C jazz minor scale on the 3rd and 2nd string. When I play it, notice that the stretches look a little bit different, and that's because those 2 strings are tuned in a 3rd instead of a 4th. So the fingering pattern, we're still going to do a 3-1-5 wrapping around each note in the scale, but it will look different because those 2 strings are tuned differently than the rest of the strings on the guitar. Okay, the last set of strings is going to be the second and first string. And so we're going to play that same 3-1-5 pattern going up the scale, only this time on the second and first string. That's an example of how you can play the scale using a cool fingering pattern, the 3-1-5, to wrap around each scale tone in the scale. As you noticed when I played through them, I had to make sure I knew where I was starting on the scale when I played each set of strings. When you start on the 6th and 5th strings, you're going to be starting on the F major triad. But when you start on the second and first, the 5th and 4th strings, it's going to be the B half diminished. And when you start on the 4th and 3rd strings, it's going to be the E flat augmented chord. And so you just have to know where you are in the scale when you start it. But it opens up some really cool sounds. Okay, so now it's the moment you've all been waiting for. How do you turn this into music? So I'm going to share with you a composition of mine. I call it Jazz Minor Etude number 1. And I'm using stuff, not all of it, because it's an artistic process when you compose music. So I'm not playing pure scales, but you will see in this composition that I am using stuff directly from the exercises. I'd like to point out a couple of them just so that when you listen to this piece you can see it. From the 4th and 3rd string exercise, where we start out on the E flat augmented triad, you'll see that is like the opening melody material for this piece. And so the exercise looks like this. And when you listen to the piece, you'll see that I added some rhythm to it, so it sounds like this in the piece. So I added something to give it a little bit of attitude. Another piece of it, directly from the exercise between the 2nd and 1st strings, you'll see that I have this cool little run right here. And that's directly from the exercise. And then this one might be one of my favorites. Again, going back to the 4th and 3rd strings, I have this run here where I'm going A half diminished, B half diminished, A half diminished, B half diminished, and then C minor. And so it's from the exercise, it's and that's the exercise, but in the piece, I changed the rhythm up a little bit to make it more interesting, and it sounds like this in the piece. It's a little bit hard for me to play when I have a microphone right in front of my face, but listen for those melodic ideas when you listen to this piece, and I hope you really enjoy it. Again, this is going to be my Jazz Minor Etude number 1. Thank you so much for listening.